When Marcus Boyd walked into the station asking about his missing friend, the officers laughed. They mocked his concern, brushed him off like he was nobody. But what they didn't know, he was an FBI agent, and the entire building had just stepped into the middle of a sting. What started as cruelty would end in a reckoning. The bell above the precinct door gave a tired jingle as Marcus Boyd stepped inside. The lobby smelled like old paper and burnt coffee. Scuffed linoleum stretched beneath his boots. A cracked bulletin board displayed faded wanted posters, and a community bake sale flyer curling at the edges. No one looked up right away. He moved with quiet purpose, jeans, a grey hoodie, no badge in sight. Just another black man stepping into a place where people like him were often seen as problems, not witnesses. Behind the counter, an officer finally glanced up. White, mid-50s, thinning hair, a badge that read Sergeant Rowley. He didn't rise, didn't straighten his slouch, just blinked slowly, bored. Marcus spoke calmly. "I'd like to file a missing persons report. A friend of mine went out near the Southridge warehouse 2 nights ago, texted that something felt off. He hasn't come back." Rowley raised an eyebrow. "Warehouse?" His voice dragged like an old truck in the cold. "That place is always getting calls. Probably just some squatters or junkies scaring each other. You sure your buddy didn't just take off?" Another officer, tall, stocky, maybe mid-30s, stepped out from a hallway, sipping a soda. "You mean the warehouse off Highway 9, he said with a grin. "Yeah, real mystery zone. Maybe he found Narnia." The two chuckled. Marcus didn't. "No," he said evenly. "I think he saw something. He said there were vans, no plates, people moving crates in and out. It wasn't just a gut feeling." Rowley leaned back, hands folding behind his head. "You watch a lot of Netflix, son." More laughter. Not loud. Not even particularly cruel. Just careless. That kind of laughter that says, "You don't matter here." Marcus glanced around. No paperwork had been pulled. No name taken. No one asked for a photo, a phone number, nothing. Just dismissal in uniform. "I'm not asking for a manhunt," he said. "Just thought it was worth looking into." "You thought wrong," the younger officer replied. "You know how many times we've looked into that warehouse. It's a dump. Ain't nothing in there but rats and bad decisions. Your friend probably went off the grid on purpose. Or he got tired of whatever you two were into." That one stung more, not because of the words, but because of how easily they were said. Marcus nodded once. "Appreciate your time." He turned, walking out as quietly as he came in. No argument, no anger, just a silence that carried weight. Outside the air was thick with Georgia heat. He pulled out a phone, pressed a number. No expression crossed his face. "They laughed," he said. "Didn't log a thing. No report. No interest. Phase 1 complete." And as the call ended, Marcus slid the phone back into his pocket and looked once more at the precinct behind him. They hadn't seen him, but now, they would. The black SUV was parked 2 blocks down, tucked beneath the shade of an old oak tree whose limbs stretched like tired arms over the road. Marcus slid into the passenger seat without a word. The AC hummed low. Agent Tamika Rios didn't look up. Her eyes were locked on a tablet, earbuds in, audio already playing. "They didn't even ask for a name," she said after a moment, pulling one earbud free. "Didn't log a single thing." Marcus nodded slowly, jaw tight. Mocked the warehouse tip. Laughed when I mentioned crates and vans. Said maybe my friend found Narnia. Rios didn't smile. She tapped the screen, zooming in on the lobby footage. Every second had been captured. High-res video, crystal clear audio. From the moment he stepped in to the second he walked out. "They thought it was just another walk-in," she said. "No badge, no threat." "It was never about the badge," Marcus replied. "It was about the reaction." She scrubbed backward on the footage, paused on a frame where Sergeant Rowley leaned back, hands laced behind his head, smirking. Another tap, and his voice played again.
"You watch a lot of Netflix, son."
Rios exhaled through her nose. "That's profiling. That's dismissal. And that's obstruction." She tapped her screen again, and brought up a second file, a chart of past walk-ins. "We've got 16 other ignored complaints tied to that warehouse, all from Black or Latino residents. No follow-ups, no reports filed, just vanished." Marcus leaned forward, arms resting on his knees. They've been gatekeeping the truth for months, maybe longer. It's worse than we thought, Rios said quietly. This isn't neglect, it's a pattern, a culture. Outside, a cruiser rolled past slowly, lights off, windows down. The officer inside didn't even glance their way. They think they're untouchable, Marcus murmured. But today, Rios said, closing her tablet with a soft click, they got touched. Cameras caught everything. They failed the test. And now we move to phase 2.
She reached for her encrypted laptop, already typing.
Case files, audio logs, facial ID timestamps. It all fed into the system, silent, methodical, damning. Marcus sat back, eyes on the windshield. The precinct was visible down the road, quiet, still, oblivious. They didn't know what they'd just triggered. They didn't know the tape was rolling. They didn't know that one quiet man with a missing friend had been the tripwire to something bigger. The truth wasn't coming. It was already here. The air was thick with late summer heat as Marcus crossed the lot in the same hoodie and jeans, same quiet steps, same unreadable face. The precinct hadn't changed, still smelled of burnt coffee and stale authority. Inside, the hum of fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, indifferent.
He stepped through the door.
Let it shut behind him with a soft click. This time, he didn't go to the desk. He stood off to the side, by the faded bench near the community bulletin board, hands in his pockets, calm, still.
You waiting?
Behind the counter, Officer Langford noticed him first. The same gum-chewing smirk from 2 days ago. Back again, he asked, walking around the desk slowly. You lose another friend.
You lose another friend.
Marcus didn't take the bait. Said I'd meet someone here.
Just waiting.
Langford narrowed his eyes. Marcus shrugged.
Didn't give a name.
Just said to meet here at noon. Langford exchanged a glance with a second officer, a younger guy with a high and tight haircut, and mirrored sunglasses perched on his head indoors. They didn't like it.
The stillness.
The calm, the lack of deference.
You got ID?
The younger one asked. Marcus's voice didn't change. Didn't bring it. Langford stepped closer, gun popping in his cheek.
You just hanging out in here without ID. You think that's smart?
I'm not causing any trouble. That's not the point. It happened fast. The younger officer stepped forward and grabbed Marcus's arm, twisting it behind his back without warning. No warning, no explanation, just force.
Hey.
Marcus started, but Langford was already pulling zip ties from his belt.
Sheer loitering.
That's probable cause. No Miranda rights. No questions. Just assumptions. They shoved him through the side hallway, past the front desk, into a dim back room with no windows and peeling paint. No cameras, no paperwork, no phone call. Exactly what they were counting on. Marcus didn't fight. He sat in the metal chair they shoved him into and said nothing.
Shio sighed.
Across the street, the black surveillance van had eyes on every angle. 4 agents sat inside, watching through feeds, audio rolling, cameras blinking red.
Agent Tamika Rios didn't look up from her monitor.
We've got him, cuffed. No charges, no rights read. One of the supervisors tapped a timer on his watch. Clock just started. Every second's evidence now, Rios said.
Back inside the precinct.
Marcus stared at the scuffed floor as if it mattered.
He wasn't afraid.
He wasn't angry. He was watching, counting, recording, and they still had no idea who he was. Not yet. The unmarked van rolled to a stop in front of the precinct just after dawn. No sirens, no shouting, just doors opening in sync, boots hitting pavement with precision. Agents moved like clockwork, federal jackets zipped, warrant folders in hand, body cams already recording.
Inside.
The morning shift was just settling in, coffee cups half full, paperwork half done. Sergeant Rowley looked up from his desk, blinking at the figures pouring through the door. Can I help you? He asked, voice tinged with confusion. Agent Tamika Rios didn't answer.
She handed over the paperwork.
Federal search warrant, she said flatly.
Step aside.
Confusion turned to panic. Officers scrambled. Phones rang unanswered. Langford stood frozen near the vending machine, a protein bar halfway to his mouth. It dropped to the floor, unnoticed. Agents fanned out fast, straight to the server room, evidence lockers, and untagged file cabinets tucked in back hallways. Hard drives were removed, paper files bagged, lockers unsealed. No one had time to ask why, only how long this had been planned. And then the front door opened again. Marcus Boyd stepped inside, not in jeans, not in a hoodie, in a crisp white shirt, a black FBI windbreaker zipped halfway up, badge glinting from the lanyard around his neck. He moved through the chaos untouched, calm, professional, every step measured. Langford turned, eyes wide, his mouth opened, but no words came out. Marcus stopped in front of him, gaze steady. "You remember me?" Langford blinked.
You said you were waiting for someone.
"I was." Rowley stepped forward, jaw clenched. "What the hell is this?"
Tamika answered for him.
Handing over a second folder. 3-month federal investigation, civil rights violations, obstruction, internal leaks. "You just failed the last test." Rowley flipped through the folder, eyes scanning transcripts, body cam stills, his own voice printed on the page. Marcus didn't flinch.
You didn't just ignore a citizen.
He said quietly. "You cuffed him without cause. You hid it, and now you answer for it." The room had gone still. Phones no longer rang. Conversations had stopped. Every uniform in the building was watching. Marcus turned slightly, his voice louder now, not angry, not smug, just sure. This was never about catching one bad officer. This was about exposing a culture, a system that protects itself before it protects the people. Langford looked down, hands limp at his sides. Rowley said nothing. Marcus stepped back.
Tamika gave a nod.
And just like that, the illusion broke. The badge they had ignored now carried weight. The man they had laughed at now stood above them. And the truth.
It had just walked through the front door.
By noon it was everywhere. Cable news, social media, front pages across the country. Undercover FBI, agent arrested without cause by small-town police. Body cam footage looped non-stop. Marcus, silent and cuffed, surrounded by laughter and contempt. No rights read, no questions asked.
Just a black man dismissed and detained until the badge came out.
The headlines burned. FBI sting uncovers systemic corruption. Precinct under federal review, after agent mistaken for civilian. They laughed, until the truth walked in. 4 officers were suspended within hours. 2 quietly submitted resignations. The police chief appeared at a hastily arranged press conference, pale, unprepared. He didn't apologize.
Just muttered about unfortunate misunderstandings and internal re-evaluation. He stepped down the next morning.
Old complaints resurfaced like ghosts. Reports dismissed as unsubstantiated were now case files, reopened, reviewed, re-examined, footage rechecked, call logs analyzed, names re-interviewed. It turned out Marcus wasn't the first to speak up. He was just the first who couldn't be ignored. Civil rights groups demanded accountability. Local activists held vigils outside the precinct. Candles lined up along the sidewalk like quiet indictments. People who'd once been afraid to talk were now calling news stations, sharing stories that had never made it into the system. And then came the podium. Marcus didn't wear a suit. Just the same windbreaker from the raid, same calm eyes, same unshakable tone. He stood before a wall of microphones, as reporters shouted over each other, questions flying like sparks. He waited for silence. "This wasn't about revenge," he said, voice low but clear. "This was about respect." Flashbulbs burst. Pens froze mid-air. "I didn't walk into that station asking for favors. I asked to be heard. I asked for help. And I was laughed at. Not because of what I said, but because of what I looked like."
He paused.
"Let it settle. I wasn't cuffed for breaking a law. I was cuffed for not fitting their idea of who belongs. And that's the deeper crime." A hush fell across the crowd. "This wasn't one bad apple," Marcus continued. "It was a culture, a pattern, the kind that turns truth into a punchline, that silences voices before they're even raised." Behind him, Tamika stood still, arms crossed, face unreadable. "Justice doesn't begin with punishment," he said. "It begins with listening, with believing, with seeing people as more than assumptions." He stepped away from the mic. No smile, no victory lap, just a quiet nod, and then he walked off stage as the room erupted behind him. Not a moment of rage,
just truth, and the echo of it wouldn't fade. The folding chairs creaked under the weight of stories too long buried. The old community hall smelled of floor wax and memory. Dusty stage curtains drawn back, lights humming overhead. It wasn't fancy, no news crews, no speeches prepared, just a circle of people who had waited years to be heard. A woman with graying braids stood first. I filed a report when my son was pulled over for nothing, never heard back. They said the file got lost. A man near the aisle spoke next. I was cuffed on my own porch. No apology, no explanation, just a warning to watch myself. The room didn't erupt. It leaned in. Pain wasn't shouted here. It was unwrapped, gently like something fragile. At the front sat Agent Tamika Rios, but tonight her badge wasn't pinned to her uniform. It lay flat on the table beside her. She listened, no defensiveness, no pre-written response, just her eyes steady, and her pen moving. "I can't fix what happened," she said, finally breaking the silence. "But I can promise it won't be buried again." She spoke of reforms, civilian oversight, new training, public access to complaint logs, a hotline run independently, an end to the culture of silence. She didn't say it would be easy, she didn't pretend it would be fast, but she said it would happen. And for once people believed her, not because of her words but because of her presence. In the back row, Marcus sat with his hands folded in his lap. No windbreaker, no title, just a dark sweater, quiet posture, and eyes that missed nothing. A teenager passed him on the way out, pausing just long enough to glance back. "I saw the video," he whispered. "What you did, it mattered." Marcus gave a small nod, the kind that says thank you without needing to say a word. The car slowly emptied. People lingered. Conversations didn't end. They expanded. Someone pulled out a photo. Another passed around a notebook of old case numbers. Healing doesn't always look like progress. Sometimes it looks like staying in the room a little longer. Outside, the night air was cool and still. A breeze stirred the trees that lined the sidewalk. No sirens, no tension, just quiet. Marcus stepped out last. He turned once, looked through the glass doors at the people still inside, talking, listening, beginning again. The sting was over. The files had been sealed, the uniforms replaced. But what mattered now wasn't what came down. It was what could finally rise, and Marcus Boyd would be there for it. Not as a badge, not as a case number, just as a citizen. Exactly as he always was. If this story moved you, if you believe in accountability, dignity, and the quiet power of doing what's right, even when no one's watching, share it. Let others see what happens when silence is broken, and systems are challenged from within. Subscribe to Black Roots for more stories that uncover truth, restore justice, and amplify voices too often overlooked. Drop a comment. What part of Marcus's story hit you the hardest? Share this video, because change starts when the story gets told.